Sylvester Jenkins III is a man of many hats, some of which include a devoted husband, a father of 4 kids, retired Army first sergeant, fitness enthusiast, self-published author, mental health advocate, and bounce back expert, among many other things. He is no stranger to adversity, having grown up in a low-income single-parent home surrounded by gang violence in a drug-infested neighborhood, where a young man was only expected to do 3 things: die, go to jail, or make it out by luck. And, it's obvious that he went the third path. He made it out by quote unquote luck. But I think that after you listen to my friend Sylvester Jenkins here, you're going to realize that he made it out through grit, perseverance, bouncing back from adversity. And he recently came out with his newest book. And I don't know why I left it upstairs, but I did. For those watching, it's upstairs right now. I finished reading it a couple months ago. And his newest book is called From Combat to Comeback. And Sylvester, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show, my friend.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, Brandon, man. I'm so excited, man. Thank you so much for having me back on the show.
It's great to have you here, brother. Let me ask you, this is what number book is this? Is this your second or third book?
No, actually, this is my 4th book.
Wow.
This is my 4th one.
Congratulations on it.
Thank you so much, man. I greatly appreciate it.
So what's going on in the world today where you said it's time for the world to read a book about bouncing back from adversity, coming back stronger, the strategies to make that happen? What's going on that this was very important for you to release at this time?
Oh, man. So what happened was the pandemic. Of course, everybody faced a level of adversity during that time. And when we was all going through that struggle of hardship, dealing with our financial stability, dealing with our mental stability, our spiritual stability, and then the physical aspects of everything, man, I just seen it as a way to capture the moment to be able to help others across the world. I believe that a lot of people became hopeless in multiple ways. And I just wanted to provide them a sense of hope. And hope for me stands for help one person every day. You can't capture everybody, but at the same time, you can help somebody. So that what propelled me to write this book.
That's so cool. I love that acronym, help one person every single day. Where did you come up with that? Is that something you've been doing for a long time in your life?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. It's something that I've been doing for quite some time now, man. And I just actually wanted to fit it all in one word. How can I provide this information? How can I be able to keep this in mind every time? Because, your words create worlds and they're powerful in so many ways. So whenever I say I want to help people or provide hope, anytime I say the word hope, I already know I need to help one person every day.
I love that. So let's talk about that one person. Let's talk about that person listening right now who's encountering a setback in their life, in their business, with their family, spiritually. And they're thinking, Sylvester, it's really easy to read a book on how to bounce back, right? But you lived a very interesting life for many reasons. You were literally in the trenches, right? You were in combat. You were in situations where if you weren't able to get yourself in the mental state emotionally, it was the end of your life. It was the end of the life of the people you cared about at the time and still care about. Like, you were in a very different situation than, credit card debt, right? Where it's probably not going to kill you, right? But it hurts, but it's not going to kill you. Like, what would you say to that person right now who is in that situation? They're not in life-threatening situations, maybe. Like, how can they begin to get themselves from where they are now to bouncing back stronger?
Well, man, the first thing they'll have to do is develop a strong sense of self-awareness. Just realize where they are right now, not give themselves and provide themselves a sense of grace, because everybody needs grace. Nobody is perfect, man. All good days won't always be good days. Some of your days going to be bad days. And you have to take the time to recognize that. Not only recognize it, but reflect on it. See what the triggers were that caused you to put you in that mental state of feeling like a failure, feeling like you made multiple mistakes, that you can't come back from wherever you are. And then just release all those things, man, because nobody is perfect. Nobody on this earth is perfect at no point in time, and there's no such thing as perfect, because you was created on purpose, for a purpose, with a purpose. So you're not the only person that's been down this path of making past mistakes, making past failures, having situations where you are not financially stable or mentally stable, man. Get the help you need, get that self-awareness, and regain your strength and come back stronger than where you were before.
Hell yeah. I love that. I want to talk about both those things. I'm one of those people who, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I've accomplished, it's difficult at times for me to give myself grace, right? And before we went live, you were throwing the grace at me, which was incredible. And a part of my brain, when I hear stuff like that, makes me think of myself as an imposter. And this is just me opening up right now.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I hear those things and it's like I'm hearing them about somebody else, because you and I, we're doing this every day. Like we're creating the content, we're on the podcast, we're helping people in real life on the streets, we're doing what we do. But at the same time, it can be difficult for me to say, you're doing a good job, just keep going, right? I can look at myself and be critical. And I know it's the same thing for a lot of other people out there.
Right.
It's difficult to look at the past accomplishments, but it's easy to see either what's going wrong or what could be better. Is there something that you do daily that helps you to give yourself grace and to focus on grace?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I do a self-evaluation, man, and I keep things in perspective. When I keep things in perspective, knowing where I started from to where I am today, it always put me in a peak of knowing that I am further than where I was before, because small steps equal great distances. And whenever you take that first step, you can take another step. And as long along that journey, you'll steadily build confidence, you'll build courage, and you'll be able to step into those areas that prevented you from being in the first place.
Now, when it comes to self-awareness,
Yes.
what you just said requires self-awareness, because you said perspective, right?
Yeah.
Looking at all the things that you have accomplished and all the things that you have done.
Right.
When did you discover that self-awareness and say to yourself, I'm going to do this and focus on this each day? Like, I guess the question might better be, how do you stay self-aware? Like, is there a certain trigger? Like you mentioned triggers. Is there a certain trigger that you have that causes you to see that perspective, to become self-aware?
Yeah, I develop a strong sense of why. A lot of people quit because they don't have a strong sense of why. They think about the what and not the why. When you think about the what, which is going along the journey, that one key thing, that overall goal that you want to achieve, why do you want to achieve that? Multiple people want to be millionaires, but why do you want to be a millionaire? You want to achieve it just because you want all this money. You got to have a why behind it. And my why is just totally changing the narrative for my kids, just being that inspiration, that provider, that's giving that sense of hope, like I said before. And if I don't start or be that blueprint for them, they'll never know what it looks like, because kids learn by seeing, not by hearing.
Yeah. What's that narrative that you want to create for them then? First of all, just to create some context here, you've got 4 children, right? How old are your children?
I got 3 boys, 1 girl. My oldest is 16. I got another one that'll be 15 the end of the month. I got a 10-year-old and I got a 4-year-old.
You're a busy man, it sounds like.
Very busy, man. They all over the place, especially with my older boys, man. They're in high school now, so they got a strong understanding. They looking for that identity, that acceptance. They're looking for that security and that purpose. So if I'm not able to sit here and dive in deep when it comes down to the things that I'm learning, or showing them that, hey, everything that you want to do, as long as you put your mind to it, you put in the work and the effort, you can achieve it too. Don't sit here and think that, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. You might not be the tallest one in the room. You might not be the fastest one in the room. But guess what? You have a skill that you've been given, placed inside of you, man, that nobody can take away from you. You are originally and authentically made, man. And you got to go out here and find that purpose and put it out to the world so everybody can see it.
We'll dive back into that, because I want to talk specifically about purpose and how it relates to what we're talking about. So 4 kids, right? Varying ages. Your why of changing the narrative for them, I'm assuming that why came about when you had your first child. Is that true?
Yeah. So the why came about. Yeah, absolutely. It came from actually my background, man, my childhood. So that is what truly inspired me, man. I grew up in a single parent home, drug infested neighborhood, like you stated earlier. But I can remember, man, looking for that sense of purpose, looking for that sense of acceptance, because I became by the age of 13, I had became a drug dealer, a gang member, and an occasional thief, man. The gangs had became a surrogate family for me. And when I was going through this lifestyle of being in the hood, or whatever you want to call it, man, I found myself just not having no sense of direction, no sense of purpose, no sense of urgency. I failed multiple times in school because I felt like the drug dealers were making money right on the spot. education wasn't gonna get me nowhere. I want it right now because all I'm thinking of is survival. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm thinking about right now. So if you can't give me something that's going to benefit me right now, I ain't worried about it. So that was my whole mindset. So when I became an adult and I did have kids, that's changed the narrative for me. All right, now I got the opportunity to change the path for my child. So they won't have to grow up in this environment thinking they got to go out here looking for their next dollar, looking for their next meal, or trying to figure out how to make their way in life and be successful.
And your why before you had children then? What was your why before you had children, or did you not have a strong why until that moment?
I did not have a strong why. My overall why was just to make my mother proud. You know, my mother worked tooth and nail. My mother was a champion in my eye. I speak highly about her in my book when it comes down to where I am today. And when it came down to a lot of things that I experienced, I know she sacrificed so much. And I just couldn't let her down in multiple ways, man. It was just so many things. My brother, he was out there in the streets. We were both out there really, strong. Well, he was out there stronger than I was. And to see him get locked up, go to jail, and then just to see her tears come down her face often on a daily basis, when it came down to the relationships that she experienced, because my mother was in an abusive marriage with my father. And, for her to break free from that, it was just one thing after another. I literally seen my mother fall down several times and get back up 8. But then, as far as me, I just wanted to change that for her, just to let her know that her sacrifices didn't go unjust. So that way, really gave me that sense of purpose to continue to try to do the best I could.
Yeah. No, she sounds like a very special lady, brother. And
yeah, man.
It's great that she was a part of, and she was your why before your children. And now you've got 4 of them that you're instilling your principles, and they're seeing what you do, and they see your accomplishments on the wall behind you, and they're trying to do things with your wall behind you. So you made some changes there, which is cool. But that just goes to show that you are instilling that example in them, along with all the other people that you're reaching. It gives you another great reason to do what you're doing at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right? I want to talk about purpose, but you've talked about betting on yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? And you mentioned in your book the importance of betting on yourself and how you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
When in your life were you able to start betting on yourself? Was it before the military, back in your past life? Was it during? Was it after? When did that come about?
No, I started betting on myself being actually after my divorce. I went through an acrimonious divorce while I was deployed in Iraq, came back home to nothing. Found myself in a state where I wanted to commit suicide because I thought I was worth more dead than I was alive. I sat there with a fifth of Palmer Sun in the middle of the floor, a 38 special right there next to me, and thinking I wanted to end it all. I said, after I smoked this cigarette, that's it. I'm done. I'm not gonna worry about anything else, because it was hard for me to decipher between possibility and probability. You think I just spent 365 days across this water, sacrificing my life for this country. I could have died at any point in time. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You never know the time or the hour. Carpe diem, right? And when you think about those things, man, that you experienced during that time, and you come back home and you walk into this house, this empty house, the car gone, your bank account red, everything missing, no family there. It's like, man, what else do I got to lose? What else do I got? I have nothing. So at that time in my life, I noticed, man, that I had beer bottles all over the place, liquor bottles. The house was trash, the house. And when I noticed how my house looked on the inside, it made me know how I felt on the inside. When I seen all those things, man, I was like, man, I started to think about my child. And I was like, man, if I kill myself, my child will grow up the same way I did. How can I change this perspective? That's when I really put everything in perspective. I felt like God was really talking to me at that time. Like he was telling me, this ain't it, son. This ain't what I put you on this earth for. Now, if you sit here and take your life, this is the end result. The same thing that you experienced when you was growing up is the same thing your son can experience when he growing up. The same thing that you went through, the path, the lifestyle, all these things, your son can experience that same thing. Do you want that? And when he gave me that ultimatum, and he said, like, you can make this choice because I give you free will to do whatever you choose to do. But at the same time, do you want this? Do you really want this for your son? And I was like, no, I don't. And that's when everything started to change. I immediately went to cleaning up the house. I immediately went to
Right
cleaning up.
after that moment, you started cleaning the
Right,
house.
right there and then there in that moment, I looked at everything.
Why'd you do that? Why did you clean the house first?
Because like I said, man, I felt as though, the way it looked on the inside of my house is the way I felt on the inside of my life.
Wow. What did you do after that? So you started cleaning the house, and what did the bounce back from that? Because that was quite possibly one of the most powerful moments of your entire life. It was
Absolutely.
the moment that defined the rest of your life in
Right.
a sense, right?
Absolutely.
So you started to focus on what you can control, right? You started to
Absolutely.
focus on cleaning the house,
Right.
right? It was an immediate thing you could do. It's kind of like, it reminds me, and the reason I ask is it reminds me of the whole that Marine who talks about making your bed first thing when you get
Yeah.
up. Because
Yeah.
no matter what, that's one thing that you can control. It's a way to tidy your home
Right.
first, and it sets you off for a great start. So
Right.
you started this next chapter of your life by cleaning the house. And
Right.
then what did the bounce back look like from that point on?
So to bounce back from that point on, man, I had a friend of mine. He noticed a lot of things that I was experiencing. He noticed the weight loss. He noticed, the missing formations, not showing up on time, and just going in that path. He invited me to church. He said, "Hey, man, why don't you come to church with me, man? Like, I think it'll be a real good experience for you." And me, I wasn't raised in the church. I didn't grow up around pastors, preachers, and all these things, man. And for me, I was like, yeah, I'll show up. What I got to lose? After that moment, dealing with, that conversation with God, what can I lose, man? I think I owe this to him at this point in time. So, of course, I go over there to the church. And when they do altar call and they're asking for prayer, I go down there and the pastor put his hands on me. He prayed for me. And he said, where you see yourself today is not where you'll see yourself a year from now. I promise you that. And I was like, yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm going along with the program or whatever it might be, showing face. And then after that, man, it really resonated with me so much to the point that I really took the opportunity to figure out what else can I do, man. I was like, man, I got to get out of this rut. So I started, I wrote down everything that I could and couldn't control. That's what I did. I wrote down everything that I was dealing with, all the hardships, all the financial struggles, the divorce, my mental stability. I wrote down all these things. And then I just started crossing out everything that I couldn't control. I crossed out, the fact that I couldn't bring my wife back, you know what I'm saying? Because she's her own person. She make her own choices. She make her own decisions. I could not, sit there and recapture the moments that I had with her. I couldn't sit there and sit and say, hey, let's be a family, let's be one again. That was a choice that she chose to make. I couldn't sit there and focus on those areas. So the only thing that I realized that I could focus on was me. And when I realized the only person that I could control is me. I couldn't control that I went to combat. I couldn't control that I had went through a divorce. I couldn't control, my financial situation at that moment in time. But I could bounce back in dealing with all those things, man, by investing in myself. And that's what I started doing. I started working out more, to build up that, my body, because you look good, you feel good. And so when I started working out, I started to, realize that I started to have a little more sense of confidence. Not only that, I started going to church more. I invested in my spirituality. After that, I went to behavioral health because a lot of people frowned on it. Some leaders frowned on it in the military, not all of them, but they thought it was an excuse for you to get out of work. But in all actuality, I needed it.
What was it called? Behavior health?
Yeah, behavioral health is, where you go speak to a therapist with your mental health.
That's
So
a shame that was looked at as taboo, and it still is to this day. The idea of talking to somebody to work through your challenges, it's more accepted now, much
right.
more now than I'm sure it was when
Oh,
you
absolutely.
started going. But
What?
how did you okay, so when your friends are like, Sylvester, why are you talking to someone? You don't need to talk to somebody. You look great. You're going to church. Like, what do
Right.
you want to talk about? Like, how did you just allow that to go over your head, or did it not go over your head?
It did not go over my head, man. It stuck with me, man. Honestly, because for a moment I avoided it because it was looked at as a sign of weakness. Honestly, it was. It was going to mental health mean like you're not physically fit, mentally fit in the military, man. This is how some leaders looked at it. I'm not saying all, some did. And
Mm-hmm.
the ones that did told you to avoid going to seeing the doctor, told you to avoid going to behavioral health in order to get that treatment that you need, because they just frowned upon it, man. It was frowned upon. I can't sit here and explain why, but overall, when it came down to my circumstance at that time, that's what happened to me. My leaders were saying like, hey, you don't need to go to behavioral health. You good. You know, ain't nothing wrong with you. Just like you said, like, hey, you in physical shape. You out here leading the troops. You doing all this. You doing all that. What you need to go to behavioral health for? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm messed up in the head. Because I'm wearing a mask. You know,
Yeah.
I'm wearing a mask. I'm wearing more makeup than a clown right now.
At the same time, too, when people see you making moves like that, it can
Right.
go one of two ways. And I'm sure it did. It can inspire people, other
Right.
people, maybe in the same party as yours, who were like,
Right.
you know, I kind of need that too. And maybe they started going without you even realizing it.
Right. Right.
Or it can cause people to feel inadequate. It can make people see what you're choosing to do, and they're thinking to themselves, wow, Sylvester's really strong for deciding to go to behavioral health and talking about it openly. I know I could use that too. I'm just not sure how I can go about doing it and go about talking about it openly to other people. And
Right.
in itself, you making the move to begin working out, to go to church, to invest in yourself, to speak to someone, right? That is a sign of strength, and that is a large form of you betting on yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
When did you then discover, like what you mentioned earlier, the purpose that you're living now? Because at that point in your life, I'm just going to assume you didn't plan on writing a book. Maybe you
No.
did. Did it? Was it even in your scope of imagination
No.
at that point?
None of this what I'm doing right now was in my wheelhouse, man. At all. I'm talking about everything that I'm doing now, the speaking engagements, talking to the youth, pouring into them, writing these books. None of this was in my forefront at no point in time. It wasn't part of my plan or anything like that. I truly allow God to guide me in everything that I got going on. Me personally, once I retired from the military, I had planned on working at Amazon, had a job lined up and everything with them, doing an internship, the whole 9 yards, and I was going to go out there and be an operations manager. But for that whole opportunity to shift, it all changed when the pandemic hit. March 2020 was a total different 180 for me when it came down to everything that I thought I was going to do in my life compared to what I am doing in my life.
Now, when it comes to your books and when it comes to all that, if you could go back to the Sylvester who was living in that drug infested neighborhood, and you could give that version of yourself any piece of advice or wisdom to help him. Obviously, he made it through that time, right? So it's not like he wasn't going to make it through. He was going to. But if you could help him accelerate that journey even more, what advice would you give to that version of yourself?
Oh, man, that's a great question, man. Like, that is a phenomenal question. I would just tell myself, man, like, hey, give yourself grace, man. I strongly believe in that because I grew up without it. Give yourself grace. You might not have the blueprint right now, but you're going to be the blueprint. Just stand strong, be steadfast and immovable. You got this. You know, don't let nobody talk you off wherever you're going to right now. I know you might find yourself in predicaments where you don't see the way out, but trust me, there is a way, there is a light. And all that you got to do is just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't let nobody change you or knock you off your path.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the message you're giving to people today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am my avatar, man. I am who I wanted when I was like at that time frame, man. So I try to make sure that those are the people that I reach.
When writing your last book, From Combat to Comeback, what were some ways that you had to bounce back through the creation of your newest book? And maybe another way to ask this is, what are some challenges you faced in writing this fourth book that you didn't face with the others? And how did you incorporate your own principles in order to continue through?
Oh, wow. So what some of the challenges that I faced, man, when writing this book was just being open and transparent. You know, I think I shared so many points in my life where a lot of people wouldn't be so vulnerable behind it. I talked about, you know, me going through my divorce and parental alienation, you know, not being able to see my kid, trying to find my kid, having to find my kid on a constant basis. I spoke about, you know, dealing with the fact of how I was out here dealing with, the hardships of failure, dealing with like I got in trouble in the military multiple times. I failed the piss test. I lost money. I got demoted in rank. These are things that people wouldn't share about their life. You just see the right now, but you don't know the struggles they went through. You don't know the background behind them or anything like that. I spoke about me sleeping in the car while my mother was at work because she couldn't find childcare for us. How we went without food from quite some time. How I failed multiple times in school. How I failed the ASVAB, the test that you take in order to get into the military. I failed that multiple times. But yet and still, I'm here after 21 years of service in the Army. I failed it multiple times. I failed it 4 times, man. 4 times.
Wow.
Most people would have gave up after the first time.
You kept putting one foot in front of the other, though.
I kept putting one foot in front of the other, man, because I wanted to make my mother proud. Everybody got that one person that they never want to let down. I always tell people to close your eyes. Now think about that one person you never want to let down.
Yeah.
Now, any decision that you make when you find yourself at a point where you want to give up, think about that one person.
And that one person was your mom.
That one person was my mother.
Is she still in your life?
No, she passed away back in 2019.
What would you hope she said to you today? And obviously she saw a lot of your success, brother, even before she passed. But what would be the saying that she could give you that would let you know that everything that you worked for paid off the exact way that you hoped?
Man, what I was hoping for was her to say, "I'm proud of you." That's all I was looking for. I'm proud of you. Yeah. If I could have heard my mother say that at any point in time, after everything that transpired, like not only now, but I was looking for that when I retired. Because when I retired, she passed away by the time I had actually retired. And my whole goal after those 21 years was to hear her say, give me a hug, kiss me on my cheek, and say, I'm proud of you. That's all I was looking for, man. That's all I was looking for.
Yeah. She's proud of you, brother.
I appreciate that.
There's no doubt, man. There's no doubt. I appreciate that. And you're a man of God. You know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I know she's in a better place, man. But I knew when I was deployed this last time, man, and I got the word dealing with her as far as her conditions and where she was at, that is a strong possibility she wouldn't make it to that time. Yeah. And I just wanted to do everything in my power to rush that. You know how we always feel like we got control, but we literally don't, man. I was like, man, let me hurry up, drop this packet for retirement so I can be able to walk off this stage and get that hug and that kiss from my mom to hear her say, I'm proud of you. But, God had a bigger calling for it, man. So I just got to be respectable of him as far as everything, because, I was mad at that time when that happened. I had a lot of resentment because I was like, God, why you had to take her now? Why you had to take her from me when, I was reaching one of my biggest points in my life? This is all I ever wanted. And you took that away from me. I felt, disgruntled towards God dealing with that, man. But he told me, man, like whether she was here or she was with me, either way it goes, she was going to be healed. Yeah. And I chose to call her home and be with me so she can be healed. It didn't matter. She's healed.
How did you, at that moment when you had an expectation in your mind of what would happen once you retired, what your mom would do, how did you move through that anger eventually to come out the other side? Like, was there a moment, like you said, God spoke to me, like what meaning did you attach to that situation that allowed you to move past it to where you are now?
Oh man, I know in everything that's transpired, everything that we go through in life, man, that everybody's clock is going to stop ticking at a certain point in time. And that's what I had to really take the opportunity to understand, man. Like I really had to take the moment to understand that my time go in here and, in years to come, whatever that might be, my time go stop, your time go stop. Everybody, it's inevitable. 2 things that are guaranteed: taxes and death. That's guaranteed. Regardless of wherever you go, regardless of wherever you do, those are 2 things that's going to happen. It's 2 things that are going to come about in your life. So you want to make sure that, like, whenever you do make that transition, though, that you set yourself up with a strong sense of awareness, a strong sense of leaving a legacy or some type of wealth for your children in some kind of capacity, man. And it just for me, man, like I had that. I dealt with that for a long period of time, man. And the only way I was able to get through it, man, was just putting things in perspective and just having a strong understanding that everybody's time is going to stop at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, brother. I mean, you've mentioned so many powerful stories in your latest book. And I think one of the most powerful stories, you actually touched on it the first conversation we had over a year ago on the show, but it was when you were about to be deployed along with one of the other soldiers, right? And you were higher ranked than this individual. And when you were leaving with him, the mother asked you to keep her son safe. And I don't think she asked it in a very friendly way. I think she was like, you better keep my son safe, right?
Yeah.
How did that change you as a human being that moment?
Oh man, that was that one person, man. That was that one person. You know, what I was talking about with dealing with the hope, like I couldn't guarantee that. At no point in time could I guarantee that I can bring your son back from this environment that we're about to go in. I can't guarantee that. But at the same time, you know, I did the North and South. Yes, ma'am. I would do everything in my power to bring your son back. And when I did that, it was just like, I hate making promises that I can't keep. And that was a promise I couldn't keep. But I wanted to do everything in my power to make sure that I did everything I could in order to keep that promise in some type of way. And so when I made that promise, that's when I started like really investing in like reading books, investing in taking this leadership, really taking it head on, because I thought I was just a manager. I never thought I could be a leader at no point in time. I didn't have the belief or the courage in order to be that individual, man, to go out here. I wasn't General Patton or anything like that, but I knew at the capacity that I was at that, you know, I had to step up to the plate in some way. And that was it for me right there.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a giant leadership transition from you were already a leader, right? But that's a giant moment of realization of, wow, this person's mother is asking me to bring their child home safe when again, if you wrote down all your challenges, like you said earlier, that's not a controllable for you.
Yeah.
Like, you can do a lot of things in order to prevent that, but it's not a controllable, right? There's a lot of other people who you're looking over too. So those leadership lessons, as they've translated into you now being a father and being a leader for all the other people that you reach with your books and your speeches and everything else that you do, like, how do you continue to show up each day as a strong leadership figure for the people in your life? Like, what do you do daily in order to maintain that leadership muscle and make it stronger?
Oh man, like it takes a lot of, like I said, that investment, man. Like taking the opportunity to meditate, study scripture, go out here, work out. You know, I continue to build myself up, reading books. I have a period of time, man. Like my first 2 hours are guaranteed. I mean, my first 2 hours are spent doing things that most people wouldn't do in the whole day. You know, like most people, they wouldn't take 15 minutes to take the opportunity to study the scripture or the word. Most people wouldn't take the opportunity to go work 45 minutes at the gym. Most people wouldn't take, 30 minutes to read a book or listen to an audible. People wouldn't take another 30 minutes to watch something encouraging and, go on YouTube and watch a video in order to enhance their skills. You know, you ain't got to always be in a college in order to learn and prepare yourself for what your purpose is. You can just go on YouTube University, man. That's what I've been doing a lot of.
Yeah.
You can watch the Be Better podcast, man.
Hell yeah, brother. Shameless plug.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the first 2 hours of each day, and I'm sure it's not, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm sure it changes at times, but the first 2 hours of each day is what you focus on getting those things into your routine, like the studying the scripture and the working out and the reading the book. Is that most days of the week you're spending the first few hours doing that?
Yeah, at least 5 days a week, man. 5 days a week, I normally spend the first 2 hours of my day. I wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock, and the first 2 hours, man, that's what I'm normally doing, man. From 6 to 8, that is my normal routine as far as how I break it down and everything that I'm doing. Even when I'm working out, man, I'm still listening to an audible, You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like I'm listening to that Eric Thomas book right now, You Owe You.
Mm-hmm. How you liking it?
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. Very insightful. You get to learn a lot more about ET, you know, how he started out and everything else. But yeah, absolutely. So just because you can't fulfill that moment as far as reading a book, sitting down and flipping pages at that moment in time, just stick the earplugs in your ear and just listen to an audible, man.
Yeah. If there was one of those routines, because there's a lot of people who, especially me, when I look back at myself before I discovered personal development, I
Right,
wasn't reading, I wasn't working out, I wasn't doing any of that. Right.
right,
And now my routine includes all those things that I just mentioned. It
right.
includes journaling and reading and working out. Like for the person who says, I want to start gaining some control over my life and I
Mhm.
want to start incorporating a routine like yours, but realize that going all in at once is probably not very sustainable for the long term.
Right.
Is there one routine that you would recommend above all that can help someone go from where they are to that next step?
Absolutely, man. Start small, man. Never start, just try to dive all in, man. You'll let yourself down. I'm gonna just go ahead and say that right now. Our vision could be so big to the point that it let us down. So I say start small. Journaling would be the top of the list because that's how I ended up writing this book.
Mm.
When I wrote down everything that I was going through, everything from childhood all the way up to now, that's when you start to realize who you are because I totally lost myself. I'm talking about I was being the best husband, the best father, the best leader. I was out here doing everything I could, grinding, hustling in order to be better for other people that I lost myself. But then when I started putting it down on paper, and started to notice, you know, who I was, to recapture my life, to know where I had started from, because my circumstances didn't become my conclusion. I can't let it happen. My start then determined my finish of where I am today. So once you start writing all these things down and you start to notice all the adverse childhood experiences that you might have experienced, all the things that you might have had failed at growing up, you once you start to see all these things that you went through, then it starts to shed light on who you are as a person and what you can do in order to change that.
Wow. So in terms of these journaling, like again, people always ask, well, what do I journal about?
Right.
So we should journal about where we were, what we went through, the challenges and difficulties that we faced. Is there anything else that you recommend that we write about? Because you're essentially saying we're writing down our own autobiography in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody got a story. You know, you can read it in one of these novels or these other books, but everybody has a story. Your chapter in your life, you have a chapter in your life for everything that you face. You got a chapter for your childhood. You got a chapter for your teen years. You got a chapter for your adult years. Either way it go, you have a story. All you have to do is just put it down on paper. Take that opportunity to really discover who you are, where you came from, the things that you experienced. Start from the beginning. You know, I was born in Columbus, Georgia, you know, August 14th, 1979. I grew up in this type of environment. I grew up in this home. I just started from there. And when I started from there, I started to realize, man, some of the things, man, I started to pinpoint like, oh, this is why I did this. This is why I went through that. I started to notice my environment was a part of my identity and what I experienced and what I went through. You start to be able to pick and pull from those circumstances that you experience in order to better adjust yourself. This is where you start to realize and gain that self-awareness. You develop a sense of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's especially for those who've gone through much more difficult things than
Right.
others.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it helps you to really we can tend to hide those experiences or to act as if those experiences didn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's to protect ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But the power of putting it down on paper and showing that it's real, even if you took it afterwards and maybe the first one and you ripped it up, you put it in the
Yeah.
fire, whatever it is, like whatever helps you, but just putting that on paper and realizing this is my past, right?
Yeah.
It
That's
doesn't
it.
mean it's who I am now. It
Yeah.
simply means these were the stepping stones to bring me to where I am now. But from this moment on, I get to determine who I become and where I go next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it, man. I said the circumstances is not my conclusion. That's it.
I love that.
Absolutely.
And like you said too, small steps equal great distances.
Right.
Just start small.
Absolutely.
Start somewhere.
You got to
Keep
start
going.
somewhere, man. I think the best place to start is within you. Putting it on paper, realizing who you are, rediscovering yourself, and taking that journey and for bettering yourself, man. Be better.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It sounds great when you say it too. So everyone, From Combat to Comeback, it's released. You can go grab your copy. Highly recommend you do. Links are in the description to go grab Sylvester's book. I read it before I went to bed each night because you really write in a special way that puts someone in your shoes. Even though I've never been in the military, even though I didn't grow up in a drug-infested neighborhood, like I felt like I did when I was reading you write about it. And it helped put my own life into perspective, but it shined even more light on how you took yourself from where you were to where you are now. So if anything, guys, this is an inspirational read, but it's not just inspirational like some of the books out there. Like, you're very practical with the book.
Yes.
You give real tips and real techniques, not just I was here, now I'm here, look what I do now. Like, this is what I did. Like, the first thing I did was I cleaned my house. Then I really started to journal and I wrote down my story, and the book came from the stories. Like, you're very practical with all of it. So guys, you need to go grab a copy of the book. Links are in the description. But you also have an ebook that you are offering to people. And the ebook is GPS Your Success. And the links are in the description for that too. Now, GPS Your Success, when did this come about? Like, when did you write this, and what was the purpose behind this book?
So GPS Your Success came out in January 2021. You know how whenever we find ourselves in a position of New Year's resolutions, right? And we want to make sure that whatever our New Year's resolution is, that we can reach that, we can successfully achieve that. So, you know, a GPS, you might have it in your car, you might have it use it on your phone. It gets you from one place to the next, right? The same thing that a map and a GPS have in common is that all destinations are reachable, and it's taking you to a place that you've never been before, right? So GPS Your Success stands for goals, purpose, and a strategy, right? It's goals, purpose, and a strategy, because once we know our goals and we understand our purpose and we have a strategy in order to achieve them, there's no reason why we can't reach our destination. So this book gives you every step that you need in order to be able to accomplish any, I won't say resolution, but goal that you would like to achieve in order to be successful. So it's called GPS Your Success.
Damn. Absolutely love it. Guys, links are in the description to go check out GPS Your Success, as well as From Combat to Comeback. And Sylvester, my final question for you, because I asked you this last time and I'm curious to see how it's changed, if at all. What is the mission that you have for the people that you serve in this next chapter of your life?
Oh man. So I'm focused on the youth. I'm focused on empowering the youth to help them to rise above obstacles and to unlock their inner warrior, to unleash that inner beast so they can be successful, be resilient leaders that triumph and succeed in life by winning that battle within, because we know everything that goes on around us, 90% of it is inside our head. The fears, the anxiety, the inner critic, the self-doubt, all those things are inside our head. Fear would keep us in the rooms that we're supposed to be in. And I want to make sure I help those who are unable to get there to actually be in those rooms.
You're doing it every day, man.
Thank you.
I'm just grateful to be along this journey with you. I'm grateful to call you a friend.
Yes, absolutely.
And I can't wait till we meet in person one of these days.
Yes, man. Yes, man. Like like I said before, man, I got to give you your flowers. Brandon, I promise you, man, like you're doing great and phenomenal things. I know you were speaking about it earlier, how you don't see it, but I see it every day, man. When I looked on LinkedIn, when I go on YouTube, man, you're all over it, brother. And I just want to encourage you, keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep inspiring others to be better.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that from the heart. And I'm so glad that you came back on the show today for round 2. And I'm excited to have you back on for round 3, man.
Yes, sir. Me too, man. Take care, brother.
Thank you, Sylvester. You too, brother.
All right.
Remember, guys, small steps equals great distances. Start now, right? Hard work comes before success in the dictionary. I think Sylvester says the quote a lot better than me. It's in the copy up there in the description. But the point is, Sylvester went from a place very different from where he is now to where he is now, with his purpose changing along the way. And his newest book, From Combat to Comeback, is a giant testament to his story, but as well as practical strategies you can use in order to take it to your next level. You got to know your goals, you got to have the purpose, and then you can create the strategy to your own success. And GPS Your Success links are in the description to grab Sylvester's ebook as well. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you took anything away from this conversation, please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. You're the reason the show has grown the way it has over the past few years, and I'm grateful to you for being the best part of the Be Better team. Thanks for watching and listening, and until we talk again next time, continue to be better.